Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. A flood of vaccine mandates is rolling out following the FDA approval of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines, but the pushback has also grown strong. The Supreme Court strikes down the new eviction moratorium, providing protection for tenants does not entitle the CDC to abuse its powers. The withdrawal from Afghanistan has gone sour to say the least. ISIS-K reemerged as the biggest threat to the evacuation effort. Our great American service members are risking their lives to save others. At the end of the show, we'll play a special speech, so be sure to stay with us. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look at this week's highlights together. The FDA granted full approval to the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for people 16 and older on Monday. Following the announcement, a flood of vaccine mandates started rolling out across the country. Some of the largest groups subject to new vaccination requirements include the U.S. military, New York City public school teachers and staff, New Jersey teachers and state workers, Disney World unionized workers, and a long list of hospital systems. Healthcare workers in particular are under enormous pressure to get the vaccine. Many hospitals have already imposed the requirement long before FDA approval. However, unlike other industry, healthcare employees see firsthand the benefits as well as the risk of the vaccines. They can make the best judgment for themselves whether or not they need the shot based on their own experience. So for those who remain unvaccinated, the new mandates may just force them to leave their jobs. And if the country is going to have an exodus of nurses and healthcare workers when there's already a national shortage, the social cost of the mandate would be too high. An anonymous registered nurse who works at a healthcare facility north of Seattle estimated that as many as 20% of her health center's 2,500 employees will refuse to take the vaccine. She said she'll lose her job after the mandate goes into effect on August 31st, unless she complies with the requirement. She's now applying for a religious exemption, but the prospect of getting one looks grim. The Health Center wants more information from her for the exemption, but it didn't say what information it's looking for. Though her estimate for non-compliant employees may eventually shrink due to the financial hardship of losing your job, the veteran nurse said, even losing 5% would be devastating to the community, as they're already understaffed. Stephanie Thorpe, a registered nurse from UC Health Colorado, said the same thing. Currently, 8% of UC Health employees are refusing the shot, and Thorpe is one of them. She could lose her job if her religious exemption is denied. UC Health is a much larger system with 26,000 employees and a pending October 1st vaccination mandate. Thorpe estimates a couple hundred staunch opponents are willing to walk away because of the mandate. The House system has to consider this before rolling out the vaccination requirement. It would face the very same staffing challenge as many hospitals around the country. Away from the healthcare industry, it's quite notable that two police unions, one in New York and the other in Chicago, are pushing back the vaccine mandate. New York City so far hasn't indicated whether it will require police officers to get the vaccine, but momentum is building. Last week, a new order requires New York police officers who haven't filed proof of vaccination to wear masks on duty, including when they're outdoors. New York Police Commissioner Dermot Shea originally said that officers wouldn't be required to get a COVID-19 vaccine, but he changed his stance when asked this week. Shea now says he's 100% supportive of a mandate, citing 3 members who have recently died from COVID. But the city's largest police union disagrees. President of the Police Benevolent Association, Patrick Lynch, has issued a warning. He said, if the city attempts to impose a vaccine mandate on PBA members, we'll take legal action to defend our members' right to make such personal medical decisions. In Chicago, the situation is more acute. Mayor Lori Lightfoot announced Wednesday that all city employees, including police officers, must be fully vaccinated by October 15th. At least one police union, Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police, is furious about the new order. President John Catanzara said his union is 100% against any mandate and vows to go to court over this. He explained, we're not going to be okay with subjecting our members to a vaccine that has not had extensive studies with side effects specifically. While the long-term effect of the vaccine is clearly an unknown, no matter what, there will always be a risk for certain individuals to have adverse and extreme reactions to any vaccine, just like any drug. On mass scale, the benefit could very well outweigh the risk, but you can't ignore these adverse scenarios. Now, it's okay for the FDA to approve it, but it should be up to each individual to weigh the benefits as well as the unavoidable risk. Fast-trending vaccine mandates are triggering an equal degree of opposition. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott issued a new executive order on August 25th. He banned any state or local mandates requiring people to be vaccinated against COVID-19, regardless of FDA approval. The governor also urged state legislators to vote the measure into law during special session. The new order extends Abbott's previous ban, which only prevented mandatory vaccination under emergency use authorization. Besides Texas, Montana is the only state in the country that prohibits private companies from mandating vaccines, and it took the action months ago. In May, its Republican-controlled legislature passed a law that says requiring vaccines as a condition for employment is discrimination and a violation of the state's human rights laws. Despite criticism from pro-vaccination mandate activists, the law has prevented at least one private healthcare system, Benefice, from coercing employees to get the shot under threat of termination. Some of the loudest supporters of the bill were employees from the Benefice health system. We have good news for landlords. After ordering the Biden administration to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy this week, the Supreme Court on Thursday blocked the eviction moratorium. Landlords and property owners have spent nearly a year in court fighting eviction bans. The moratorium was first issued last September in a bid to protect tenants who lost income during the pandemic crisis. As you can imagine, too many bad actors took advantage of the protection and stopped paying rent. But then where's the money to pay for the mortgage? Nearly 1.5 million homeowners are seriously delinquent on their mortgage payments as of the end of July 1st. 1 million more than at the beginning of the pandemic. The CDC first rolled out the moratorium last year, expiring on July 31st, amid criticism questioning its authority to do so. But at the time, too many people had lost their jobs because of lockdowns, so public interest was protecting the tenants. Now the situation has changed. When the health agency stepped in again on August 3rd and extended the moratorium another 2 months on its own, Congress was excluded from the decision-making process. The president himself was not even optimistic about the new ban's fate in court, but he still allowed it to go through. The Supreme Court ruled the CDC has imposed a nationwide moratorium on evictions in reliance on a decades-old statute. The statute authorizes the agency to implement measures like fumigation and pest extermination, but not the sweeping authority that it asserts to issue the moratorium. The ruling won't likely lead to bad renters immediately being expelled, but the decision is pivotal in reaffirming the boundary of the CDC's power. It has unequivocally crossed the line. Landlords can now begin the eviction process in cases where they couldn't before. It's the second week of the chaotic evacuation from Afghanistan, and the situation turned mournful on Thursday night. The United States saw the deadliest day for American troops in 10 years. A complex attack involving at least 2 explosions outside Kabul airport killed 13 U.S. service members and injured 18 others. Afghan civilian casualties are much higher, with at least 95 people dead. ISIS-K claimed responsibility for the attack, bragging that a suicide bomber managed to penetrate all the security fortifications put in place by the U.S. and the Taliban. Following the deadly attack, Biden took questions during Thursday's press briefing and was pressed by Fox Peter Doocy whether or not the president bears responsibility for what had happened in the last 2 weeks. Biden said yes.
You said the buck stops with you. Do you bear any responsibility for the way that things have unfolded in the last 2 weeks?
I bear responsibility for fundamentally all that's happened.
Biden then reminded the press that it was the former president who first struck a withdrawal deal and reaffirmed his August 31st deadline. Biden said there still remained an opportunity over the next few days to get everyone out. There are only 4 days left. And coming up, where did the terrorist group ISIS-K come from? Will Americans be left behind after August 31st? And words of inspiration from a former president. But before we continue, I just want to say thank you for everyone's continued support. With censorship being extremely inundating, it's more important than ever that every one of you takes the time to share this video so we can keep our friends and family informed with truthful information. You can also help the Eye Opener team with our mission to deliver truthful news by donating to the show or purchasing a mug that matters. You can find the link in the description below, and your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. Salute. ISIS-K is now complicating the situation at Kabul airport, disrupting the last stage of the evacuation with bomb threats. So who is ISIS-K? What's its relationship with the Taliban? Let me explain. ISIS-K is the Khorasan branch of the terrorist group. The group formed after an offshoot of the Taliban fractured and pledged allegiance to the leader of ISIS back in October 2014. ISIS-K became formally recognized as a terrorist organization in 2015. It has even more extreme visions for Afghanistan and a more severe interpretation of Islam than the Taliban. Catherine Zimmerman, a counter-terrorist specialist, said the Islamic State sees anybody who doesn't accept its vision as an enemy, and that includes the Taliban. The conflicts between the two groups means ISIS-K won't be bound by the Taliban's agreement with the Western world to allow evacuation to continue. Their notorious suicide bombers are imposing complex challenges to intelligence and security personnel attempting to stop them from reaching the crowds. Reportedly, hundreds of ISIS-K fighters remain in the vicinity of the airport, and more attacks could be on the way. Biden has directed military officials to draw up plans to strike ISIS facilities and fighters in retaliation for Thursday's bombing. Evacuation flights have resumed. According to the White House, more than 100,000 people have been rescued from Kabul airport, including at least 4,500 Americans, with as many as 1,000 U.S. citizens still struggling to leave the country. But many doubt as the deadline looms, the White House is downplaying the figure. The actual number of Americans stranded in Afghanistan could be much higher. These Americans were scattered across the entire country at least when the Taliban seized the capital on August 15th. Were they all able to make their way to the airport under the watchful eye of the Taliban in the last 2 weeks? That would be an overly optimistic assumption. The evacuation efforts hasn't gone beyond the city of Kabul. Just last week, the official estimate of Americans remaining in the country was between 10,000 to 15,000. A source briefed on the situation in Kabul told Fox News after the ISIS attack that some Americans will be left behind if a much bigger number of them are stuck in the country. On Thursday night, former President Trump delivered a speech addressing the tragic terrorist attack and saluted the brave American service members in Afghanistan.
As one nation, America mourns the loss of our brave and brilliant American service members in a savage and barbaric terrorist attack in Afghanistan. These noble American warriors laid down their lives in the line of duty. They sacrificed themselves for the country that they loved, racing against time to rescue their fellow citizens from harm's way. They died as American heroes, and our nation will honor their memory forever. I want to express my deepest condolences to the families of those we have lost. Today, all Americans grieve alongside you. Together, we also pray that God will heal the other courageous American service members who were wounded in this heinous attack. In addition, our hearts are with the families of all the innocent civilians who died, and with the many men, women, and children who were terribly injured in this act of evil. Every American who served in Afghanistan has made tremendous sacrifices for our country. On behalf of your fellow citizens, I want you to know that those sacrifices were not made in vain. We know what you did. We know how brave you were. And we thank you, we salute you, and we honor you for all time. I hope that every American will join me in continuing to pray for the safe return of all U.S. citizens and soldiers from Afghanistan in the coming days. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
I want to end today's show with words from the former president's address at West Point commencement on June 13, 2020. As long as you remain loyal, faithful, and true, then our enemies don't even stand a chance. Our rights will never be stolen. Our freedoms will never be trampled. Our destiny will never be denied. And the United States of America will never be defeated. We call on all current administration to do its best to bring every American home. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can also join me on our Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. I would like to thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.